My name is Jacob, and I welcome you again to another English language class. Today's class will be about punctuation, and we'll be talking about two different punctuation marks, the colon and the semicolon. These two punctuation marks are almost the same, but they are not. They could always be confused. Sometimes you have someone using the colon where the semicolon should be used, or the semicolon where the colon should be used. But they are different and they have their separate significance. How do we use the colon? One way we can use the colon is to introduce a list of items. The colon is commonly used before a list of items. That is one of the very common uses when you ask. You could always hear people give you this function of the colon as the first or the most popular. Remember that you should not blindly take the information as a rule. The information about the use of the colon. Do not blindly take it as a rule. Understand why the colon is used before items are listed. Now let us see some examples. My mother has a lot of things in her box. Wrappers, jewelries, shoes, bangles, and eyeglasses. You can see where the colon appears. It appears after the last word before the list of items. At least this money can buy a few things for your school. Books, pens, sandals, and food stuff. Look at where the colon is again. That is after the clause, the independent clause. Before the list of items, you have the colon. Do not use the colon in this way. My mother has a lot of things in her box, such as wrappers, jewelries, shoes, bangles, and eyeglasses. Now, if you use these introductory words, such as, then you won't need to include the colon. That's what you should note. Okay? Now, if you do this, you will be doing the wrong thing. If you have such as, then you shouldn't have a colon. And that's why I mentioned earlier that you should not follow this information as a strict rule. That is, whenever you intend to have a list of items, that you must have a colon. No, that is not true. So it is not in every situation where you have a list of items that you should have a colon. It depends on how your sentence is constructed. Let us look at this other sentence again. My mother has wrappers, jewelries, shoes, bangles, and eyeglasses. You can see now you have a colon inserted after the verb has here. That is not correct. You shouldn't have a colon after the verb that connects the subject and the object. Okay, so in this case, you shouldn't have a colon. My mother has wrappers, jewelries, shoes, bangles, and eyeglasses. That alone, without the colon, is good. The colon is used between two independent clauses. The colon separates two independent clauses. The second independent clause is meant to explain the first. Let us see these examples. You must be punished. Your action calls for it. You have two independent clauses. The first one, you must be punished. The second one, your action calls for it. You've not been studying. Now you must repeat a class. You have the first independent clause, you've not been studying. The second, now you must repeat a class. So, because you have not been studying, you're going to repeat a class. Or you must repeat a class because you have not been studying. So you can see how the two independent clauses are very closely related. Okay, and in their relationship, the second independent clause explains or gives some more information about the idea in the first independent clause. After the colon, the first letter should not be in capital letter unless it is a proper noun which always begins with a capital letter. I hope you get that correct. Do not start the word after the colon with a capital letter. That is, you must be punished. Your action calls for it. Do not use a capital letter for Y here or for N here. Okay? So that is to say that it is not starting a new sentence. It's only continuing the sentence that has started right from this very point. You've not been studying. Use the colon between two main clauses for emphasis. The colon can be used between two main clauses of related ideas if the second clause emphasizes or illustrates the first. It is better to link them together as a single sentence rather than separating them into two different sentences using the full stop. Look at this example. Our journey to Abuja was fun. We had reasons to laugh all through. Okay, so the second part of it, which is we had reasons to laugh all through, emphasizes the first part of the sentence, that is the first main clause, which is our journey to Abuja was fun. Mother is always smiling. That is probably what attracted father to her. So the same thing applies to the second sentence. Mother is always smiling. That is probably what attracted father to her. The first or second example above could be written as two sentences, but because the second clause is almost part of the first and the speaker may not want to present them as separate ideas, the colon is used to separate them, and they remain as one sentence. The colon is used to introduce numbered or bullet points. Look at this example. There are three types of letter: formal letter, informal letter, semi-formal letter. Now these examples, or in this example we have used bullet points, but you could still use numbers for the items. There are three types of letters: 1, formal letter; 2, informal letter; 3, semi-formal letter. So anyhow you write it, you are to introduce that by using the colon after the introductory statement, the introductory sentence. There are three types of letter. You can also use the colon to introduce a quotation. Use the colon to introduce an extended quotation. That is, a quotation that is indented and given a separate paragraph or section. Here we're referring to a situation where you want to create a quotation. Now the quotation is not indicated simply by the use of the quotation marks. But what is done is that portion that is meant to be the quotation is given a completely different paragraph, and from the beginning at the left end or left margin, that statement doesn't begin from the very position where the other texts begin. So there is a kind of shifting, spaces left before the quotation is written. Okay, so now that is what can be called an extended quotation. Example: the doctor gave a long speech. My main concern is to ensure that this community has whatever will make the people comfortable. See, the doctor gave a long speech. What is the speech? The speech is what is written below. My main concern is to ensure that this community has whatever will make the people comfortable. Now the speech is actually to be longer than this. That is, the quotation, the quoted portion could be longer than this. Okay? So you could even have 2, 3, 4 or even more sentences in such extended quotations. Now let us talk about the semicolon. How do we use the semicolon? The semicolon allows a pause longer than that created by a comma and not as long as that created by the full stop. It does not end a sentence. Get this clear again, just like I said about the colon. It does not end a sentence, but then it allows a pause. Okay, a pause, not the same way you have the full stop, but and again, not the same way you will observe the pause indicated by a comma. The semicolon has a little longer pause than that which can be created using the comma. The comma, the semicolon, the colon, and the full stop are all observed by pauses of various durations. Okay, that is what I just explained. However, the duration of the pause is not exclusively the determinant of the usage of any of the punctuation marks. Sometimes one can pause within a sentence for other reasons, like trying to choose the best word to use. Okay, so what I am saying here again, let me say it in a different way, is that the pause is not what indicates the use or the various uses of the different punctuation marks. No. There are times you're talking, just like I am doing now. I can observe a pause between two words or within a sentence, yet there will be no need for either a colon or a semicolon or a full stop in such situations. Okay, so although the comma, the colon, and the semicolon indicate some form of pause, the pause is not necessarily what should make you say, okay, there should be a comma here or there should be a semicolon here. No, that's not the way it works. Do not use a capital letter after a semicolon. I'm still saying this. The reason is because there's always this mistake, this feeling that, okay, because there's the pause that's a bit longer than that of the comma, then the next word should begin with a capital letter. No, that is not the situation. The semicolon is used to separate groups of words where the comma has been used. I'm going to explain that. In the room, I kept a bag of bangles, shoes, and necklaces, a box of wrappers, shoes, and books, and a note for everyone. I read that again. In the room, I kept a bag of bangles, shoes, and necklaces, a box of wrappers, shoes, and books, and a note for everyone. So you can see the first part is saying bag of bangles, shoes, and necklaces. That is one part, one group of words, and you can see the comma is used there already. The second group of words, a box of wrappers, shoes, and books. That is, you have a box in which you have wrappers, shoes, and books. And then the last part of it, and a note for everyone. Now, if the semicolon is not used here, the writing, the message will not be clear. You can order plates of rice with plantain, egg and meat, meat pie with tomato, onion, and potato, or pepper soup with goat intestine, vegetable, and goat head. You can compare the two sentences and you can see how much of the use of the comma and the semicolon are alike. Okay? The semicolon connects two related independent clauses. Where there are two closely related ideas written side by side, the semicolon should be the preferred punctuation mark to be used. Mary loves singing. Janet prefers dancing. Mary loves singing. Janet prefers dancing. Yesterday we had too much to eat. Today we can't even get water to sip. Look at these two examples closely. The first part of the sentence, Mary loves singing, is related to the second part of the same sentence, which is Janet prefers dancing. If you use the full stop to separate them, then they will stand as two different sentences. But because of the relatedness, because of how much the ideas are closely related, there's no need using the full stop to separate them. And since you need to write them together, you use the semicolon to separate them. And when you read out, you can observe the pause between the two independent clauses. Mary loves singing. Janet prefers dancing. Likewise, the second sentence. Yesterday we had too much to eat. Today we can't even get water to sip. If you use a conjunction between the independent clauses, then you will avoid the semicolon. Okay? That is, if you use a conjunction, any kind, any conjunction, after singing in the first example given there, then perhaps something will happen to the sentence. And what will happen is that you will not need the semicolon there anymore. Let's see that. Mary loves singing and Janet prefers dancing. So you can see the difference. Mary loves singing and Janet prefers dancing. If you read it carefully, you will also discover that the pause after singing is not as long as that which you have in the first sentence or the first example given where you have the semicolon. Yesterday we had too much to eat, but today we can't even get water to drink. You see, the conjunction in the number 3 example is and the conjunction in the number 4 example is but. Yesterday we had too much to eat, but today we can't even get water to drink. This is different from what we said about the colon, where the second clause adds to the information given in the first. You have to get the difference. They're not the same. Here we said the semicolon connects two related independent clauses. So these independent clauses, these main clauses, are closely related. But in the case where you may be required to use the colon, the situation is not just that of relationship. That is, it's not just that they are closely related, but that the second part provides additional information about the first. That's another kind of relationship, but you can see it's different from what we have in this sentence, in this situation where we use the semicolon. Here is your assignment. Punctuate the following sentences correctly by replacing the dash with the correct punctuation mark. Pay close attention to this as you read, because in some cases you may not necessarily be doing any replacement. You may just leave it out or whatever. However you see it, if you read it and you think that there shouldn't be any punctuation mark there, then you leave it that way. Let me read them. I have a goal to find her. Let's meet tomorrow. You can tell me your problem then. Although they are children, they can learn. I have traveled to Lagos, Bauchi, Gombe, and Abuja. 4 of my friends visited me when I was sick. Tayo, Musa, Aisha, and Karo. Thank you for participating in today's class. I will be happy to meet you again. You can contact me on this email that is presented on the screen. Thank you again. Have a nice day. See, nothing is coming.